Welcome to Albums Out of 100. This is a music album review channel where albums are given a standardised mark, unsurprisingly, out of 100. We rate albums on the criteria of listening experience, lyrics, fluency, and album cover. You are currently listening to a review of the album English Electric. Feel free to listen to the album on Spotify to get a feel for it if you haven't already heard it. Let's get started then, and remember, what follows is simply my opinion. The artist is Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, or OMD for short. The track list is as follows: Track 1, Please Remain Seated. Track 2, Metroland. Track 3, Night Cafe. Track 4, The Future Will Be Silent. Track 5, Helen of Troy. Track 6, Our System. Track 7, Kissing the Machine. Track 8, Decimal. Track 9, Stay With Me. Track 10, Dresden. Track 11, Atomic Ranch. Track 12, Final Song. The genre is synth pop. This was OMD's 12th album, and crucially, the second album since their reformation in 2006, where founding members Andy McCluskey and Paul Humphreys were reunited under the name of OMD once more. It was released in 2013. Album cover. Look at that, it's just perfect. The colours all complement each other, and it looks half abstract and fully computerised. It's very easy on the eyes. 5 out of 5. Track by track analysis. Track 1, Please Remain Seated. English Electric is incredibly conceptual. An album opener, Please Remain Seated, is the perfect introduction to this concept. In the form of an airport tannoy announcement, it spouts a string of Chinese words at you, leaving you baffled, only for a second announcement to bring the full English translation, telling you that the future you anticipated has been cancelled. Please remain seated and wait for further instructions before it signs off. It really sets up the entire record, informing you concisely that what you're about to hear will be glimpses of life from a future that never was. Track 2, Metroland. Following this enthralling introduction is Metroland, a track that recalls the 1920s Metroland brand that marketed an outer area of London with promises of a modern home set into the country, linked to the centre of London by a fast rail network. These promises soon fell through, and OMD's track evokes this disappointment. The lyrics once again emphasise the return to the past, with the line, "Today is yesterday," while lyrics like "decline," "crawl," and "burn" paint a rather dystopian picture of this alternate society. Metroland uses a technique OMD have favoured on recent albums, a gradual introduction and outro to the track, involving a build-up or build-down. Basically, Metroland starts playing with a sparse beat, then audibly adds layer after layer of synth-pop elements to the track, second by second, until the track is ready for the addition of lyrics about 2 minutes in. The same technique in reverse is then used to fade the track out after the 7-minute runtime. It's a technique that works better than it has any right to, adding a real sense of ease to the track. This can also be interpreted as a method of mirroring the rise and decline of Metroland. As the music builds up and down, so does the dream of the utopian future. Though it only offers us brief glimpses of this alternate society, what we are told is that this is an unhappy place where the narrative voice feels consumed and installed in Metroland. Track 3, Night Cafe. Night Cafe features a narrative voice that seems very removed and unaffected by the world around him. He sees people come and go, but doesn't care what they say. This is a man broken by the memories of unrealised dreams, a man crippled by the past. The track is built around a metronome, which resonates through the track. The instrument-driven choruses sound like echoes, and make the track a fearsome piece to hear. Track 4, The Future Will Be Silent. The first experimental track on the album, The Future Will Be Silent, samples a whispering voice questioning what the future will be, a female yet robotic voice that answers, and backing voices that repeatedly scream, stop, and go. These elements combine to provide an atmosphere to the track that almost sounds like a strange futuristic call and response. The track fills you with dread as the robot begins to panic and repeat, "The future was not supposed to be like this," but its voice is soon swallowed by the electronic backdrop of the track and silenced. Track 5, Helen of Troy. Although it's very abstract, Helen of Troy seems to lament religion and is filled to the brim with sadness. At the same time, the voice in the track feels unable to cry, and this shows dehumanisation. Once again, the electronic echoes rise to drown the voice, signalling the end of the track. Track 6, Our System. The track begins with static, punctuated suddenly by a gunshot-like blast of beautiful electronic that imposes itself on the track regularly. Choruses are gospel-like and faint. The lyrics contrast the beauty of the universe with the brokenness of the human species, and how these two seem wholly unlikely to coexist. The narrative voice finishes his words with a plea to save us from ourselves and deliver from the end that seems to be the natural conclusion, the human race destroying itself. The gospel voices sound louder, almost screaming now, and static once again seems to envelop the track. Track 7, Kissing the Machine. The female robotic voice is back to introduce the track, but Kissing the Machine sounds more pop than experimental. Well-flowing lyrics talk of surrender to machines as masters, and the loss of emotion brought about by this development. The greatest thing about the track is the vibrant instrumental choruses that slow the song down and remain in the mind more than any lyric ever could. Track 8, Decimal. A return to experimental type electronic, Decimal features a female robot counting from 1 to 10, and then it adds kind of numerous robotic answering machines to the mix, more and more, one at a time, all competing for your attention until the cacophony of hostile robots is suddenly stripped away to leave just the metronome-like original voice, still counting from 1 to 10. Then silence. Track 9, Stay With Me. Stay With Me once more relies on instrumentation to deliver the chorus, and a lovely chorus at that. It sounds like a standard love song really, sort of thing you could imagine a boy band singing acoustically. It's the context of the earlier tracks that makes you think about who this love song is addressed to though. Is it a subservient human addressing his newly appointed robotic master? Whatever you draw from it, it is filled with emotion, longing and despair at another dream shattered. It's also great to hear Paul Humphreys back on lead vocals for the first time in decades. Track 10, Dresden. Dresden brings no real progression to the album, OMD presumably preferring to echo the sound of earlier tracks of the album and focus on drawing the same sound through. Don't get me wrong, it still sounds great, but it's much more an extension of other tracks than a new direction within the album. Its lyrics once again lament the loss of a fantasy, ending the narrative voice repeating, "I can't live with you, and I can't live without you now." All that remains is the gloomy truth it seems. Dresden, it sounds quite relaxed compared to most of the other tracks on the album too. No harsh robotic voices, no sudden jumps, or clashing electronica. Track 11, Atomic Ranch. Atomic Ranch breaks that sense of peace within the first second of its playtime, with harsh vibrating static sound introducing the track. Throughout this track, a male voice, sounding robotic, makes demands for a perfect life with a house and a car and a robot wife on his list. He's echoed by a female robot, before the vibrating static takes them for its final time, and the track seems to implode in on itself. Track 12, Final Song. Once more we have robotic voices counting, but counting down this time, which leaves you with a sense of fearful anticipation. With lines such as, "Break all the bones of the dying man," "Drink the blood from the poison can," OMD force the harsh alternative world they have imagined back through our ears for a final time. Filled with lusty female voices, ing, in agreement to an unknown creed, and whispering tick-tock, tick-tock as the track fades, this track leaves you uncertain of the future. Totalling up the points. Overall for listening experience, the smooth mix of experimental and more pop-structured electronic tracks make English Electric a pleasurable listen. OMD know how to craft a catchy beat and how to evoke emotion through electronic noise that could seem bland in the hands of a lesser band. The robotic female tinge voices are a fantastic addition to the album too, but are not overused, and the sound of the album is ultimately enough to keep me enthralled. Even if I didn't understand the lyrics, I would still understand the journey the album took me on. 42 out of 45. Overall for lyrics, English Electric showcases some brilliant ideas. Most interesting to me is the way the joyful sounding electronics often directly counter the lyrics that speak of a dystopian world where there is no hope. The lyrics seem an unnerving mixture of past and present, but keep you guessing. They document brokenness and loss of hope. They show utopian dreams being reduced to dystopian realities. 34 out of 40. Overall for fluency, it would be hard to find a better example of an album that fits together like it was born to. This album was created just so that all the different pieces fit together. It takes you on a wonderful ride through their illusory place of shattered dreams and dominant robots, never letting you take a breath until its final notes fade. 10 out of 10. Meaning, if my calculations are correct, the English Electric has scored 91 marks out of 100, meaning it is rated as a classic album on our comparison scale. Well, that's it for this review. Leave a comment below to let me know what rating you would give English Electric. This channel also has an official Facebook page, so give that a like, if you're a fan of mindlessly liking things. An MP3 of this video is also available on Mediafire, because we moved from SoundCloud because they're tight gits, and they won't give us any more space. You can also check out our official website, where you will find links to all our videos, plus some exclusive content and the official scoreboard, which has all the albums listed on, in, well, order of how good they are. The next review will be of the Orchestral Manoeuvres LP Part 2 by Eminem. See you then. Incredibly conceptual. An album opener, Please Remain Seated, is the perfect introduction to this concept. In the form of an airport tannoy announcement, it spouts a string of Chinese words at you, leaving you baffled, only for a second announcement to bring the full English translation, telling you that the future you anticipated has been cancelled. Please remain seated and wait for further instructions. Track 6, Our System. Track 7, Kissing the Machine. Track 8, Decimal. Track 9, Stay With Me. Track 10, Dresden. Track 11, Atomic Ranch. Track 12, Final Song. The genre is synth pop. This was OMD's 12th album, and crucially, the second album since their reformation in 2006, where founding members Andy McCluskey and Paul Humphreys. Let's get started then, and remember, what follows is simply my opinion. The artist is Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, or OMD for short. The track list is as follows. Track 1, Please Remain Seated. Track 2, Metroland. Track 3, Night Cafe. Track 4, The Future Will Be Silent. Track 5, Helen of Troy. Welcome to Albums Out of 100. This is a music album review channel where albums are given a standardised mark, unsurprisingly, out of 100. We rate albums on the criteria of listening experience, lyrics, fluency, and album cover. You are currently listening to a review of the album English Electric. Feel free to listen to the album on Spotify to get a feel for it if you haven't already heard it. We're reunited under the name of OMD once more. It was released in 2013. Album cover. Look at that, it's just perfect. The colours all complement each other, and it looks half abstract and fully computerised. It's very easy on the eyes. 5 out of 5. Track by track analysis. Track 1, Please Remain Seated. English Electric is